I hope that you had good moments at Coco so far. I love the music in general. Your graphical communication is perfect. I would love
Thank
to
you so
reuse
much.
it for any adoption projects, by the way. That might work.
I guess we find a
Uh,
way for it, yes.
Fantastic. Guys, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending in which time zone you are. I'm not sure if you believe me, but I'm in a very different time zone than the European one. On my side is now 2:30 a.m. I'm in the States for the moment. Uh, and I knew it that this conference going to happen on that time when I will be away. However, I believe that this session is important to be mentioned, to share my details, to share everything what is related with adoption from my field. So let me share my screen for now. I will hope that you will see the presentation. Unfortunately, I'm using just one screen because of being away. That's why all the questions you're going to have, I will check at the end of the session and give a try to answer them. Okay, Copilot Adoption 12 lessons learned from 12 months in the field. To be honest,
Edyta,
this session, yes,
did
yes,
you already share your screen? Because currently we're
yes.
just viewing the video, so perhaps retry to share
Okay,
again.
yeah,
And now it comes.
it
I
comes.
see
Okay,
the,
it was just a little bit. And what about now? Can you see it or
yeah,
not?
no, yes, perfect.
Now it works
Thank you
perfect,
so much.
of course. So yeah, 12 lessons from 12 months in the field. Uh, to be honest, this session has been presented last year. However, I have decided to update some reflections, some lessons I have had during that time. And of course, it's not only 12 months in the field. I'm working with Copilot adoption. We can say basically from the beginning where Copilot uh, has been announced by Microsoft and later on developed. Okay, but before we start, just a few words about myself. My name is Edyta Gorzon. In community, people call me Eddie. If you want to stay connected with me, you can scan QR code or simply find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm Microsoft MVP since 2019. However, I've been in this community a little bit longer, over decades. Time flies, and I don't know how it has happened. But I'm very thankful to share my knowledge, to interact with people like Sarah. Her session was amazing, and other speakers who are invited, and other people in this community, of course. Yeah, I do organize Collab Days Poland. So if you never had a chance to visit Poland, maybe this is a good reason to join us in Poland. This year, the conference is happening in June in Warsaw, so very perfect excuse to visit us in Poland. Enjoy perfect content as well, to do some sightseeing. And my background is rather business than technical. I would say that I'm kind of hybrid consultant. Currently, I'm working as a consultant and architect for Copilot products at Millennium. And in the past as well, I did a lot of adoption related projects. Customer topics in regards Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams. All right, so let's move to the content itself. Why does Copilot adoption matter? Um, Let me show you this slide. And now I'll be sharing very honest feedback, comments, reflections from the market while working with my customers. When I start talking with my customers, I can see that very often they ask me, we want to have Copilot. And as we all know, Microsoft recently is calling different products with Copilot prefix, suffix, whatever. And I have noticed that many of users, business decision makers, they really struggle to understand what kind of Copilot do they already have and what kind of Copilot they want to invest in the near future, and how do they want to extend Copilot for a very, very long term and scale it uh, wisely. That's why I always explain at the very first beginning, while talking to the very first pre-sales call with the customer, before all the adoption scope will be shaped, before all the adoption activities going to be defined. I'm starting the adoption already with business decision makers to make sure that they understand where they are and what they want to achieve. And I recommend you as well to use the example of Lego, because everybody likes Lego. I hope so. Majority of people do that. You can start explaining Copilot to your colleagues, depending what's your role. If you are running Copilot adoption internally, so then to your colleagues. If you're a consultant, to your customers, that Copilot chat, so the free version of Copilot, is like a Lego Duplo. So you can build something what it's quite useful, but it's still simple. But everybody can do that. The second part is Microsoft 365 Copilot, paid version of Copilot productivity tool, license per user. I'm sure that you all know that. And in here we are using classic Lego. And in the very last step, we have Copilot Studio, so Lego techniques, where we can achieve even more with Copilot, in this case, to build fancy solutions, fancy agents that are really supporting and accelerating the way how we work with AI. And to be honest, this graphic really triggers the audience, really triggers the users, really triggers the customers, because they start to understand how adoption is important and how it matters, especially when we have so many Copilot different products offered by Microsoft. Let's move on. So now let's start with the lessons. As I promised you, I have 12 lessons, maybe a little bit more. All the lessons come from my own experience and observations. So I hope that you agree, or at least you will learn something from my experience. Okay, lesson number one. Very first lesson that basically has happened as well in regards other Microsoft products, but in here, of course, Copilot. So if you wish to run a marathon with Copilot, so if you want to run a successful implementation, make sure that you are ready. In this specific case, readiness is understood as Copilot governance. No matter if we're planning, rolling mostly, or supporting mostly Copilot chat, or we are going to have 10K run with Microsoft 365 Copilot, it means that we have invested just in few licenses and we are trying to understand in which direction we want to go with Copilot, or basically we're running marathon with Copilot Studio. We must be sure that our organization is ready, that all the policies that are related with Copilot across our tenant are aligned with the security parts, are aligned with compliance, are aligned with our vision of Copilot, how it should behave. For instance, I have had customers who have decided to disable Copilot Studio Lite, so the agent builder, at the beginning of rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses, to do not confuse users, to first of all start with basic prompting with Copilot chat and Copilot across different Microsoft 365 apps. And later on, during the adoption process, they were launching a possibility to build the agents. So this is just example, but in all the cases, the governance was very carefully defined, as well revised. If you would ask me how to approach Copilot governance flow, I don't feel super comfortable with this topic. However, just to give you some hints where to start. So basically, if you think about Microsoft 365 Copilot itself, it makes sense to check Microsoft 365 Admin Center, SharePoint Admin Center, SharePoint Advanced Management, Teams Admin Center, Microsoft Exchange, Purview, Microsoft Entra Admin Center. And then when you are planning to adopt Copilot Studio and, of course, build agents with Copilot Studio, again, there are a few different admin centers that require from you, from your technical team, to be reviewed, to be set it up according to your wishes in regards Copilot, as well company AI policy. Because not every company is commercial company. If you are coming, for instance, from the finance sector, probably more and more regulations are on you, and they must be fulfilled with Copilot governance. At the end of the day, I can see that all the customers who have decided to make this Copilot governance pre-adoption step, so making sure that we have this technical readiness to scale and launch Copilot, they are also building the reports. So they really collect all the policies, all the settings in a one dynamic document to make sure that IT people, but as well people from business, quite often new departments that are created in different companies who are responsible for AI. AI itself, or for digital AI transformation, so completely new positions, completely new people in the company, to make sure that they have like a one benchmark document where all the policies, where all the setups in regards Copilot governance are placed in one thing. So it means that we are not relying only on IT people who are responsible of configuration and later on maintaining the product from the admin perspective, but we also have like a benchmark, technical benchmark, that is helping us to understand how we want to develop Copilot as well from the business perspective. And I'm always saying that Copilot governance is equal to Copilot adoption. So basically, these two parts should be always should always go together. And then when we have Copilot governance and then done Copilot adoption, we can also start exploring and extending our Copilot experience with agenting solutions. On the top of that, why it is important to make sure that we have all these rules, all these policies in a one place, understood for business, is the fact that Copilot service, as you know, as you noticed, is really evolving a lot. All the time we're having new updates, new features, new agents. That's why to stay focused, it's good to have like one source of knowledge. Okay, so this is the very first lesson. Let's move on to the lesson number 2. That might be quite interesting. Do users use Microsoft 365 right? If not, better stop and readopt. Another observation, I don't want to say that it is a sad observation, but sometimes I do have those kind of feelings. I have noticed that many organizations, they want to push Copilot because they don't want to stay behind their competitors. They want to shine because of AI being in place, being introduced. But many of them they don't have a proper implementation of Microsoft 365 tools. As you know, I have mentioned that I come from this adoption part from Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams, and sometimes I'm really confused when I see that we want to push Copilot before we start taking care of the grounding. And in this specific case, the grounding, the soil, is Microsoft 365. We must be sure that the critical tools from Microsoft 365 ecosystem, critical for the business users, critical for daily processes such as Teams, such as Outlook, and so that they are really discovered by the user. So they really know how to use them right, that they are not creating zombie teams in Teams. They know how to use what's the difference between Teams chat, between Teams channel, how to share files, and better do it with OneDrive instead of sending via attachment, right? So all those minor things, they really matter to make sure that our Copilot adoption gonna run well. And in my talks with the customers, quite often we have this debrief moment how to combine Copilot adoption together with Microsoft 365 adoption. And to be honest, besides shaping Copilot adoption scope of work, it happens that we also put some extra lessons around major Microsoft 365 apps that are critical for this specific customer. I know that there is no way back. We cannot really stop, and we cannot really readopt. But I hope that you agree that without proper Microsoft 365 adoption, it's hard to expect that Copilot Glitter will do some job, because if we have so many files to which are the same, how Copilot can refer to the right source of information if we have that many in our tenant. And the conversation on the left-hand side comes from my customer, so you don't have to, I will be not reading that. Probably you have read it already when I was talking, but yeah. In the perfect world, first adoption of Microsoft 365, then Copilot. However, if you see that Microsoft 365 is lagging, the users are not using the tools in the right way, it really makes sense to put some extra lessons around Microsoft 365 when scoping Copilot adoption project. Lesson number 3. One Copilot adoption project scope, I'm sorry, but no. If we're talking about project scopes, of course, such a project takes some time. Depending what's the customer size, what's the customer budget, what are the customer expectations, what's the customer maturity with Microsoft 365 apps usage. Those projects might take from 3 to 9 months, sometimes even longer, if there is a big need for Microsoft Copilot Studio adoption. Therefore, me as a consultant, I always prepare a scope of work. However, I'm aware of the fact that the service itself is changing rapidly. And we as consultants, we as architects, we as people who are responsible for Copilot adoption, we must be ready for changes. So remember to adjust your plan accordingly. What are the recent changes in Copilot service? Starting with materials, where Copilot chat, for instance, a box is changing, but as well leave some buffer for ad hoc sessions, ad hoc activities, ad hoc materials. Just to make sure that users are getting the most recent knowledge about Copilot capabilities. Just a hint, but I think that very important one, these fixed scopes are gone with Copilot. Everything, even the scope should be dynamic. And of course, I would recommend you in this step, follow the best practices from Microsoft Adoption, as well Microsoft adoption.com, so Copilot Success Kits. There are plenty of different examples, how to drive adoption, what kind of recent materials can be used by you in regards different Copilot products. Doesn't matter if it's a Copilot chat, Microsoft 365 Copilot, or Copilot Studio. Just remember about this source of knowledge. because sometimes we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have direct support from Microsoft, but in the same time, I also encourage you to make sure that those materials are tailored to your company, your business needs. They're like a perfect starting point. But still, we must adjust them accordingly with whom we are talking, what's the culture of your organization, to make sure that materials are as much tailored as possible. Well, lesson number 4, features are not driving users, valuable cases are. In fact, when I talk with, again, my clients, I can hear quite often a comment that Edyta, so last year we were trying to boost Copilot adoption. We have hired any external consultant. He or she joined us for a few general Copilot sessions. And basically we show some better usage after few days after the training, but later on the Copilot adoption curve did not change. And yeah, this is the case where basically we think that if we show our users the features, they're gonna be happy. They're gonna be happy to explore Copilot, and our adoption score gonna rise like a rocket. Unfortunately, the reality is more harsh. In my experience, I have noticed that we should not present all Copilot features at once. And if we want to present them, we should select Copilot features accordingly to the role, or accordingly to the process, accordingly to the department we are going to train. What do I mean by this? So it is extremely important to understand how different departments work with Microsoft 365 tools. Let's take HR. So what kind of applications from Microsoft 365 stack they're using. Um, then shaping the process. So I don't know, I'm having a Teams meeting. I have a Copilot in the Teams. Then I'm having the transcript. Then I'm having OneNote in Copilot, and later I want to use Copilot in Outlook. What means that I'm selecting different types of Microsoft 365 licenses, applications, and I'm putting them as a process. And based on this process, I'm preparing the training content for different groups of people. Because for some people, Copilot in Outlook does the job because it's summarizing the email threads. It's helping to answer quicker. That might be very useful for salespeople, but for those people who are not using Outlook that often, or they don't have those struggles with long threads, probably maybe those features are not the shiny ones. Maybe they need something else, something related with Teams or any other app. Therefore, remember to make sure that you understand how people are working, which Microsoft 365 applications are using, how their processes are shaped in Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and then show them how Copilot can boost them, how Copilot can improve the quality of their work. And by the way, when we are talking about boosting and quality, I'm also avoiding quite often in adoption projects the word productivity. Normally, we will use this word to be more productive, to achieve more. However, I have noticed that many users, when they hear you're going to be more productive, what means even more productive, they're getting a little bit angry. Because, again, I do a lot of things. I'm extremely multitasking person. I'm overwhelmed with the number of tasks that I must deliver daily, and suddenly I'm hearing that I must be more productive. So just letting you know that in some cases, for some customers, the productivity word can be replaced with other wording, like for instance, you will be getting more quality, or you're gonna be more confident at your work thanks to Copilot. But yeah, that was just a side topic next to the features that are not driving users, but valuable cases does the job. Okay, lesson number 5. Custom your Copilot training. One, work on realistic materials. This is a very minor observation, minor, but in the same time, very important, at least in my eyes. I have noticed that the better prepared for different types of training sessions we are, in regards understanding how users are working, so those processes from the previous example, but as well if we're using the realistic materials that are known for the users, example of the files, examples of the Excels, examples of the PowerPoints, the colors, the graphics, everything that makes us even closer to the way how users are working daily. And if we take those materials for our training as an example to show users how Copilot can transform my presentation, or how Copilot can work on my data in the Excel file, we're getting more interest from the audience. So they see, so this is exactly the PowerPoint I'm using. This is exactly the Excel report I must fulfill every single day. You are getting their interest. You are not talking about any blah blah file uh, or any test message, but you are really showing the realistic examples. So of course, it requires more time, but if you put more preparation efforts while collecting those materials, while understanding how people are working, probably you spend less time to train users again and again, or at least to convince them to use Copilot on their daily work. Lesson number 6. Start with baby steps. Select the most buzzing Microsoft 365 apps in your organization. As we have mentioned at the beginning, Microsoft is calling Copilot in so many places, and as well we have Copilot in different Microsoft 365 apps. The perfect Wheel of Fortune. I know that there is already an updated version from Kirsty McGrath, so you can check Kirsty's profile on LinkedIn. However, I'm always selecting this wheel to show the users, to show my customers that Copilot inside Microsoft 365 is present in so many different applications. And of course, we can train users across all of these applications, but our goal is to make sure that Copilot became a habit, became the very first AI choice while working. That's why my lesson is that we should select those applications that are seen as the most frequent used in our organization. And quite often we start with Teams, with Outlook, of course with PowerPoint, Word, Excel, sometimes with Forms, and of course with OneDrive and SharePoint. And when we have the part related with a Copilot and those most basic apps covered, then we of course present what Copilot can in other applications. Why we do that? Again, it's important to stay transparent. It's important to take about the users in that sense that they can be overwhelmed with Copilot icon everywhere. They can be overwhelmed with AI push from everywhere. But in the same time, they want to understand what's the real value of this solution. And the real value of the solution can be presented first with the apps they're using the most. So yeah, identify those apps. Of course, you can do it from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You can see what are the trends. But as well, you can ask users directly, for instance, in a survey, in the survey in Forms, if you are having those surveys sent to the users before you start adoption activities. Lesson number 7. Everybody knows, no one knows. Never skip prompting workshops. Another example from the customer. Customer reached out to me. They said that they have had some Copilot inspiration sessions. They also have had some most basic app, Microsoft 365 app Copilot related sessions. And anyhow, users, they refuse to use Copilot. They prefer other tools. Of course, those other tools are not blocked, so there is a big risk that some data will leak, and they don't know what to do. Basically, users, they claim that other solutions are better than Copilot. And my very first question was, have you done any prompting workshops? And you can imagine that, of course, the answer was no. That specific customer haven't thought that prompting is a new skill. Prompting, it's something what we must take care of, and we shouldn't assume that everybody in our organization knows how to prompt right. We work with different generations, starting with super young Gen Z, ending with the elder people. And of course, it's not a matter of age, but there are also different people who have different fluency in regards to technology. And we shouldn't assume that everybody knows what is prompting, because some people, they think that prompting is just like writing or typing something inside Google. That's why prompting is extremely important uh, to be taught for all the people, all the users that are taking part in Copilot adoption. So first of all, of course, we should educate how to build right prompts, what are the good prompt ingredients, how to prompt with Copilot, because if we have the paid license, we have the slash. As well, we have prompt coach available for everybody, for paid and not paid license users, just to show them the realistic examples. And again, another hint from my end, before I have a prompt workshop with the specific group of users, I'm always prepared with sample prompts that might be useful for them. So again, it requires some extra preparation to understand how do they work, but at the same time, I'm not showing them good prompt, but which is completely irrelevant, completely disconnected from the way how they work, from the nature of their tasks. I'm preparing potential prompts that might be used by them, and in the same time, we together during those prompting workshops redefine those prompts. So basically, we polish them for better to make sure that they will be perfect enough to be used short after the workshop. Copilot prompt gallery, it also makes sense to show what are the samples from Microsoft, also to show people how to save their own prompts, as well how to schedule prompts if there is a paid license in place. So basically, prompting, it's really critical. I know that Sarah has mentioned this prompting part as well at the beginning of Copilot journey, so I'm extremely happy that we're aligned. Without good prompts, we cannot expect good results. As simple as that. All right, lesson number 8. Communication is a king, effective communication is a queen. As in every adoption project, we must be sure that we drive proper communication, because communication drive people, people drive companies. Without people, the adoption will not happen. Um, so while running your Copilot adoption or next steps after adoption, it's good to focus on proper communication strategy. It's really important to define what are communication channels in our organization and which of them are the most used. Because if we even have a perfect idea to use any tool, but it is not consumed, people, they don't know how to find it. Maybe it's better to not risk to start new communication channel. Maybe it's better to use what we already have. There are different types of communication. Of course, we have email communication. We can also have our Teams team. We can use intranet. We can use Viva Engage. It really depends on you. Sure, Viva looks perfect in regards and with integration with Copilot. However, I also have customers who will say, sorry, Edyta, we will not be using Viva. We have different channels, and this is okay. I mean, we can start exploring Viva later. It's not an issue. For me, it's more important to have proper communication that works now, because we want to do this adoption now. It is also extremely important to define receivers and senders. Probably you have different groups of people. Some of them, they have Copilot chat only. Some of them, they have Microsoft 365 Copilot paid license. So we must understand what kind of communication we're going to send to these two different groups. On the top of that, we'll of course probably have Copilot champions. They must understand what's their role, what's in it for them, what are the expectations, what's the gratification and all that. So while making your communication plan, probably it's going to be like a table where you have date, content, who is the sender, who is the receiver, and so that it's really important to have it in place. And again, being agile, because as we said a little bit earlier, the scope gonna change, so probably communication plan will be changing accordingly. Communication content type, it can be static, it can be video, it can be real, whatever works, whatever is welcomed by your users. And yeah, schedule, timing in place, but with agile touch. Uh, on the top of that, I have noticed that it's really good to have like a dedicated space for daily communication for Copilot users, to send them some hints, some tips, some tricks, whatever is important, but also give them a chance to ask a question, to share a good prompt, to make sure that they can feel safe and understood and supported, no matter if they're short after training or they're in their own experimentation phase. And of course, Q&A sessions. My practice is to have a training one day and day after having a Q&A session to understand, to let people to help people to explore new features, as well give them some understanding what are the next steps in regards the adoption project itself, because there are also questions related to that. Lesson number 1, training users just once isn't sufficient. Most will go back to old habits. So again, Copilot adoption is a process. I would rather say, it's never-ending process. And even if we have at the beginning this aha moment, this excitement moment from the users, we should remember that changing is a long phase before Copilot gonna become the real habit in our daily processes. So it really takes time to shift the mindset from the users, and really encourage them to explore more and more Copilot features later on, probably agents and building their own agents, and so that. Therefore, this reinforcement is extremely important, especially again when Copilot service is changing that quickly. So consider Copilot community creation. If you have had any community creation during your project, please keep it live. It's a perfect place to make sure that the adoption after all the activities gonna last longer, and every time when there is a new feature, new activity planned for the users, new killer prompt, whatever, this community will be the place to share all this news. Copilot champions, keep them active. Think about what kind of benefits they might get from this role. This is always a brainstorming with my customers to understand, okay, they're going to put more effort, they're excited about technology, they want to help others, but what kind of gratification they should get just because they're going to support us during adoption projects, but also later after the project. Different type of monthly what's new sessions, tips and tricks from the field, especially in regards any specific role, any specific task, super oriented on the and tailored for specific area. Success stories, practical examples, Q&As. Basically, the more efforts, the more excitement we're gonna boost after the project, the better for the adoption rate. Lesson number 10. Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, it also requires an adoption plan. I have noticed that some of companies, they are focused that much on the users who are having Microsoft 365 Copilot paid licenses, as well Copilot Studio, that they forgot about users without the license. Um, Therefore, I always say that Copilot adoption project is a complex project. We should think about different type activities for different groups of users in regards the license type they have or they don't have. Um, Especially if we want to have one dedicated AI solution used by business. And in this specific case, when we focus only on Copilot as one solid, secure solution, then it is important to take care of the people who don't have paid licenses. And we also should rethink what kind of prompting trainings we should plan prompting workshops. I rather call it workshops because I really ask users to touch the keyboard. So it's not only listening the content, but it's mostly clicking together with me, but as well in what kind of scenarios Copilot chat that it's limited, but still very useful, can be used in regards different roles and in regards different departments. So please remember about this, because the fact that users, they have Copilot icon everywhere, they are getting a little bit confused. They're afraid to click, they're afraid to explore, and they really need adoption plan and adoption activities, how to use Copilot chat on daily basis. And as well, you're going to see, thanks to that, who of them are reaching out to you to maybe upgrade the license because they see the solid value of Copilot chat. They have heard from those who have paid licenses that there are more features to be explored, and they're also able to bring some good examples, some good scenarios why they should get a paid license. So we have this habit already with Copilot chat, and later we can nicely upgrade and expand Copilot journey as organization. Lesson number 11. It's all about building Copilot learning habits and creating a culture for upskilling. In fact, Copilot is here. We all know that it stays, but we also know that it develops and changing a lot. And we can do our best as consultants, as architects, as trainers to make sure that we provide the most custom, the most tailored, the most shiny content to our users. However, still we should have in our minds that this culture for upskilling, for inspiring the users to explore by themselves what Copilot can do for them, should be also in their hands. There are so many different materials in Microsoft Learn, and I have noticed that users, especially the ones who are not related with technology, so they come from completely different sector, they have completely not techie roles in those organizations. When I mentioned Microsoft Learn, probably they have heard something, but the very first impression is, this is something what it's for technical people. So we don't even try, we don't even touch. We don't want to explore by ourselves because this is not our piece of cake. And interestingly, when we inspire them that, hey, there is a dedicated material for Copilot powered by Microsoft, the platform. There are different types of models. You can really learn a lot in your own pace. They have they're a little bit surprised that they can use this kind of training materials, and they can be also nicely consumed and understood by them. So long story short, besides all adoption activities, make sure that this culture for upskilling is built, and the users are aware of different type of materials that are also available from the Microsoft site. And lesson number 12, of course, I wouldn't be myself if I would not mention about change management and enablement, of course. Those are the key things to success. Successful technology adoption is 80% people and processes, technology just 12%, 20%. And of course, in this specific case, I always highlight the fact about ADKAR model. And I know that we are running out of time, so just very briefly, ADKAR, the method from ProSci that help us to understand better, to shape better the entire adoption journey. But I wanted to show you just the different types of activities in regards to ADKAR that can be done by you if you want to have this change management in place. Awareness, so we are spreading the word about the change in this specific step. We are preparing our communication, we are checking what's the user sentiment, what is extremely important to shape the future communication, as well to understand what kind of processes and Microsoft 365 apps are used inside the organization. So very important part. I know that's another survey, or again, they want to ask me something, but really important as a starting point for the future activities. Here we also announce the program. We're building a platform to share the knowledge. Then we have desire. So we are motivating users. We're, making this hunger from the user perspective for Copilot hands-on. So here we have different types of Copilot 365 inspiration sessions for paid version, for free version. So as I have mentioned, different Copilots, different activities as well for the agents. We also here create the Copilot Champions Ambassador Group kickoff to make sure that ambassadors or champions, they understand who they are, what are their activities, and so that. Then we have knowledge, so really making our hands dirty in regards selecting the scenarios, prioritizing the scenarios where we're gonna, based on which we're gonna have Copilot custom trainings, different type of workshops in regards prompting with chat version, with paid version, and so that as well. The next step, ability. So different, again, types of trainings for different groups of people. Copilot tips and tricks with ambassadors, making sure that they understand what's the difference in between Copilot itself, in between agents, in different products, and so that. And at the end of the day, reinforcement, again, selecting the best prompt of the month, some sessions, what's new in Copilot for every user, celebrating together all the Copilot success stories with our champions, having Copilot Day, so everything that makes us sure that users gonna use Copilot for the long term. And the cherry on the top, so very quickly, we covered all 12 lessons, but there is something what must be said. The wording we use matters. Speak business, not tech. What is tenant? What is orchestration? How to understand token? What do you mean grounding? Adoption is about people. Adoption is about the users, end users. And majority of people who are using Copilot are end users. So probably they don't understand sophisticated techie words. In those adoption projects, please make sure that your wording can be understood by business people. Pretty, please. Communication is a king, effective communication is a queen. We remember as well the wording we're using. We should not expect from everybody that everybody knows what's tenant, right? Or orchestration or whatever fancy word we find. Wording really matters. Okay, to wrap up, very short summary. So we have had Copilot governance, checking Microsoft 365 adoption as first, to put some Copilot glitter on it. Be ready for Copilot adoption project changes in the scope of work if you have such a scope. Investigate use cases, scenarios as a grounding for effective end user training. Customize your training materials and content, so use the realistic files to train users and realistic examples. Start with key apps with baby steps, then explore more Copilot features with other apps. Prompting workshops, mandatory activity for everybody. Ensure you have a solid communication plan in place. Training users just once isn't sufficient, so remember about constant reinforcement, especially that Copilot service is changing rapidly. Microsoft Copilot Chat needs adoption as well. Take care of those users who don't have paid license. Teach users how to benefit from other Microsoft materials. As example, Microsoft Learn. This learning culture is extremely important. Change management, enablement are the key. Make sure that if you are building scope of work, set of different adoption activities, you are supported by ADKAR model. This is something what has been used, checked by different companies with different technological implementation, so we can rely on it. And of course, avoid using technical jargon. Adjust your wording, because to be understood, we must communicate right. All right. If questions, I will have a look in a moment into the chat. Thank you so much. If you want to stay connected, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. And now I'm stopping sharing to check what do we have in the chat.
Thank you, Edyta. Great session.
Thank you.
All
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to waking up in the night and being here.
My pleasure.
As a speaker, it was really an awesome session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm checking here if we have any questions. Yes. Do we have the link to download these slides? Basically, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn and I will be more than happy to share this content with you. Right, it's up on the speaker. Basics again, Copilot's next level of collaboration. Exactly. Custom your Copilot training. Yes, please, really, guys. There are too many features in Copilot. If you really want to show it that it's beneficial for business people, just customize. They don't care about all the hidden features if they're not relevant to the process or task they must do on daily basis. So really focus on that. And yeah, that's it. Okay, all the questions. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Thorsten, and all the all the team.
Yeah,
lovely.
It was a pleasure. And it's for me, it was so important to hear that we need to also identify the different use cases, so it doesn't make sense to bring in Copilot into the company and don't have in mind that, of course, the HR has some other topics and use cases than, I don't know, the marketing team or manufacturing or whoever. So it was so often during Copilot implementations that, of course, we found it's a great use case, but at the end, the user itself has some issues to adapt it and find it also such awesome as I. So very important to have this understanding. So thanks a lot again, Edyta, and
take
have
care,
a good
guys.
night and a good day and in a few hours.
Same for you guys. Enjoy the conference. Bye.
Bye.